right, we're gonna get started. All right, so everyone, welcome. My goodness, we are in week 4 of Hug It Out. I hope you are wearing your best pajamas to this evening, because goodness, isn't that all we're wearing on the bottom these days? All of our Zoom fancy attire up top. I think they called it the outfit mullet, where it's like fancy up top and just like not so great on the bottom. Let's see here. So I am your host. I am Jendi Watson. I am located in Bainbridge Island. We're just outside of Seattle. So Hug It Out, we have a place here where we can restore and connect during COVID-19. And this is free because all of our guests are gifting their time to you and me. Last week, we had a fabulous movement healer, Abby Rappaport. She is a Chinese herbalist and acupuncturist, and she led us through medical Qigong to help move the Qi through our body, our energy through the body, especially the organs of the lung and of the liver. That was pretty awesome and really powerful and quite simple at the same time. So that was great. It's on replay if you missed it. The week before that, we had Brad Galvin, who specializes in EMDR, which is a trauma-based type of healing modality. And that's also on replay at my website, which is nalucenter.com. That's NALU center.com. And then the week before that, I opened it with a heart-centered practice, also talking about the idea of presence and mindfulness during this time, which we all so much need right now. So a little bit of an update. Let's see, I check the news maybe once or twice a week now, because that's about all I can manage at this point. So since that time, we are still in strict social distancing. It continues. And on Monday, our governor announced that schools will remain closed for the rest of the year, which I'm assuming a lot of other locations in the world probably are going to follow suit, but that sat heavy with me. And it kind of landed today of what that feels like. It's pretty heavy. A lot of grief there for me. So, big stuff there. Also, Bernie Sanders closed his campaign today. The US has taken number 1 in terms of number of COVID cases, followed by Spain, Italy, and Germany. Yay, US. Wow, that blows. Washington State's doing pretty well. We're number 10 in the United States. And so that's kind of the new updates there. Last week, I also covered kind of the 5 major pillars of how to be well in this time. And the first 4 come from trauma expert Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. He's a Dutch psychotherapist specializing in trauma. And so the 4 things, I'm not going to go into great detail because I did last week, but the 5 things is having daily structure, keeping it simple and predictable in your eating, your playing, your working, being with your children. The second thing is having heartfelt connections. We are souls and we are heart-led. So having some type of way to really stay connected with people. The third thing, which we focused on last week, was movement, moving our bodies and engaging our bodies, because a trauma response is usually one of fight or flight or freeze. And so if we can keep our bodies moving, we can continue our energy moving and really trying to be well in this time. I added boundaries, because we need some serious boundaries during this time so we do not get blown up by the news and the grief and the heaviness of this time. We don't have to carry it all. We can just take small pieces at a time. And then the very last thing to do well in this time is to do the things we love. What things do you love to do, and do them? for me, so I had a crappy day today. It was a hard day. I was really just kind of down in the dumps. I was really just kind of bummed out about, I basically wasn't very present, like, what do I have to look forward to? There's no play dates. There's no, social things to look forward to. Really missing my friendship circle, really missing my family, really missing making wontons with, my Chinese side and eating them together, missing all of that stuff. And so today I had a great session, and my work saves me. I love doing what I do. I left feeling just, we're meeting on Zoom at this point, as everyone is, but I left feeling invigorated and alive. And, this is what I love to do in this world. So do the things you love. And so I want to ask you, what do you need in this time? What do you need? Is there anything that I can do to help serve, provide, nourish? I would love to help in some way. So you're welcome to send me a text message. You can send an email. You can set it in the chat box here if that feels right to you, either publicly or privately. You can send a plane up on Bainbridge Island and, shout it out through the sky, like, however you want to get that to me. I would love to know what would feel really good to you at this time. All right. So we have a phenomenal guest this evening. She's also turned out to be a really great friend, but we met back in, oh, wait, 1 second. Before I do that, holy cow. There's this crazy story I want to share with you, and it's between Lori, who is on tonight. And yeah, I know, gosh, you guys, this is so crazy. So a couple of weeks ago, on probably one of the windiest days, a few weeks back, I went to this really beautiful beach called Point No Point. And there's this great lighthouse. It's up in Hansville, Washington. And so we pulled into a parking spot, and, we're like, we hadn't, socially isolated yet. And we're going to the beach and we're really excited. And I opened the door, and the gust of wind just like takes my door, and it just slams like crazy into the car next to me. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like I like dented this person's car. And so I'm looking at it, and I'm like, is it as bad as it is? I'm like, it's bad. It doesn't look very good. And so I tear a piece of paper out of my daughter's journal, and I just write, like, I'm so terribly sorry. The wind caught my door and it really hit yours. And I want to repay for whatever damage that happened. And so I left my email address. And I check my email all day long, like, when is this person gonna email me back? And she emails, I think it was the next day or even later that night. And she sends me this really sweet note. I don't even know what the note says at this point. Lori, do you remember what it says? What your email said? I unmuted you.
I was agreeing. It was so windy. I have never seen it so windy there. And in fact, when I opened my door, it kind of took my door a little bit. I went like, whoa, I'm so glad I didn't hit the car next to me. And when I got back from my walk, there was a sweet note under my windshield wiper. And how that didn't blow away, I'll never know. It was just serendipity, the whole thing.
Exactly. So I get a note, just an email saying, oh, I totally understand. It was such a windy day. And I was actually expecting, like, how dare you got my car? Like, that was, how dare you? And it was this sweet, really forgiving, really generous note. And, she asked me, how should we proceed? Do you want to go through insurance? Do you want to cash pay? And I said, I'm happy to pay if you'd be willing to get 2 estimates. And so honestly, a couple of days later, she comes back and she says, I got an estimate from an auto body shop, and it was $600 to repair the door, which was actually a relief number because I was thinking it was thousands of dollars because it looked bad to me. And then she said, well, I'm actually not really looking for like a perfect, repair job. I'm looking for like pretty good. And so this auto body shop gave her a business card to a dad who works out of his garage and does ding repairs for like $100. And she tips him $20. And I was just like, I'm so, so thankful. And then I learned that Lori is a nurse at Harrison Hospital through all of this COVID stuff. And I'm like, I can't believe this wonderful, sweet woman who is working so hard for all of us in this really, really, really hard time. And, I just expressed my gratitude to her, and I expressed my gratitude for her honesty. And then she shows up on Hug It Out, and we just made the connection here, even though I remember seeing you last week too. So
It's been fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing.
did I leave anything out?
No, it was great. Yeah, what a great story. Feel like I have a new friend.
Feel the same way too. So yeah, who knows when you have these random gusts of wind plowing into someone else, you just might meet a little angel. So thank you for thank you for being her, Lori, and thank you for your grace in that whole.
Thank you.
Yeah. This world is so interesting. Who would have thunk? Okay, great. So now, Kimberly, thank you for waiting. So our next guest, we have Kimberly Bianco. We met back in 2013 at our Hakomi training when you hosted us in your house, which was always so beautifully clean and thoughtful. And yeah, I remember being so drawn to you for your presence, for your fierce ability to stay with really hard, big things, for your mama bear approach to loving your boys, that I was so inspired to parent very similarly to you, and your deep compassion for others. And I am so delighted now to call you one of my greatest friends. Thank you for coming here tonight. I can't. Oh, there you are. Yeah.
You hear me now? Yeah. So, Jendi, you're a treasure. And we've done some wonderful things together. And it's no surprise to me that you would meet a friend through banging a door in the wind. I mean, like, that's who she is. So that says a lot. So do you want to do some questioning, or do you want me to just jump right in?
I want, if you'd be willing, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're located? And then I'm going to add a third thing. So you started doing a lot of body work, doing craniosacral therapy, doing massage therapy, and then now you're moving toward the somatic therapy side of things. So would you be willing to tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my office is in Snoqualmie, Washington, and I'm currently shifting to an online presence and getting out of my hands. By fall, I'll be solely online. Been doing body work and this sort of thing for 22 years. My toolbox, so to speak, is equipped with Hakomi, IFS, hypnotherapy, craniosacral cupping, massage, energy healing, just kind of put it all in a basket. And what I really work with often or kind of specialize in is chronic pain. And since chronic pain can be so complicated, I wanted to be able to come at it from a really multi-dimensional approach for clients, because it's not just the pain. So I wanted to be able to work with the emotional and the spiritual and the energetic and the so forth. So, but my love and my passion is the Hakomi, the IFS, and the craniosacral. So I love the body work too, but after 22 years, I'm feeling it. So I'm shifting.
Yeah, I see how important that shift is. And especially with chronic pain, But the foundation many times being not necessarily, well, from what I've learned, you can say more about this, but body pains. It's actually you talked about the 5 pillars or something about how to heal chronic pain. Do you remember talking about that? Where it was like, first you address the body.
Yeah. So chronic pain, first off, in my little school of thought here, you always address it on a physical level first. You always tend to what is showing up physically, work with those symptoms, treat it to the very best of my ability. And oftentimes that isn't sufficient. Oftentimes the clients I'm seeing have been to a bazillion doctors who can't come up with a diagnosis, and they're in that medical mystery category. So after addressing it physically, then we move on to what is the emotional. And then if we can't touch on what is the memory, then we move on into what is the spiritual. And then in that spiritual is kind of woven the energetic. So oftentimes this isn't done verbally. It's done through working with sensations and feelings and movement and posture. And, I can feel heat, I can feel vibration, I can feel, I can see shadowing on the body, and I watch it, right? And I don't have to be right. I just share with the client what I'm seeing, and as we follow it, we find where that epicenter is when something begins to unravel and move, and we just follow that until there's a release. Does that make sense? But you always start on the physical plane first.
Yeah, and I'm curious how that was for you as a body worker, doing massage therapy and doing sacral therapy, where I'm sure you've heard your clients talk about, oh, this memory just popped up.
Yeah. So that's we're all such a mystery, and A plus B doesn't always equal C. So a client can come into my office and present with, let's use low back pain. Often it's very common. And there are plenty of people who have put low back pain in a box that, and I'm not faulting them in any ways. Let's just reference Louise Hayes. She tends to have charted out what body pain is equal to what. And it has some rhyme or reason to it. Like low back pain tends to be a lack of support. Knee pain tends to be an inability to bend or move through or work with. You see their patterns. But through the time that I've worked, I've had these in the back of my head being curious, but more often than not, it's more complicated than that. And as I begin to work on that body part, and the person and I kind of find our rhythm and some sort of trust and reciprocity, I start to get information, and so do they. And we bounce this information back and forth, and oftentimes a memory will come. And it's something that they haven't remembered for 30 years. And it can be something as simple as, I was a gymnast and I fell off the beam. And for 3 months or 6 months after that, I had low back pain. And I'm getting chills right now because maybe there's something in this for me, but then when we start unraveling, what is that? Because there's not enough information there. Okay, you fell off a beam and you injured yourself and you had low back pain. That's physical. But why 30 years later is it coming back? And when you start paying attention and get more information, you find out, oh, so they were alone in the pain. And they went home and there wasn't anybody to care for them. And there wasn't any treatment. And it was ignored. And then they were told they had to push through and ignore the pain. And then you come to find out that in their current day, they're facing some kind of pain and they're alone. And there isn't anyone tending to it. and they're not getting medication and they have to push through. So you start to see these parallels. Well, when you start naming them, the pain begins to shift and it begins to unravel because it's being acknowledged. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I totally love about this practice is really trusting where you're going with whomever you're with, and trusting what is coming up is exactly what needs to happen.
The
And
body is so wise.
yeah,
And something that we can't guarantee a lot of things in life. In this time in my practice, I can trust with 100% certainty that the body is reaching to heal. It may not be doing it well, it may not be doing it effectively, but there's something about it reaching to heal. That doesn't mean it can, but it means it's trying. And our interpretation of what healing looks like doesn't always mean living. Okay, it doesn't always mean growth. It doesn't always mean repair. But what I know is that the body wants to reach toward whatever we're going to give it. We would never learn to walk if we didn't have this innate desire to really live and be alive in the world. The body, to me, is the same. It has this innate desire to regenerate, renew, restore, and go through a life-death cycle. And I don't want to get into that because that's a little too woo-woo, but I know that I can trust working with anybody and in their body that there is an innate wisdom in the body and it reaches to heal. So if I come toward it or the client comes toward it, it will meet you.
yes, and I see your passion and trust in that process. Like, you come alive when you talk about that. So I am so thankful for you coming today. I mean, I was thinking today when I was kind of in a shitstorm of myself of like, I need to, I would love for 8 o'clock Hug It Out to happen so I could sit and be nourished through a practice that can help me in this time. And so, yeah, I would like to hand it over to you if that would be okay.
It is. And actually though, I do need a little bit of feedback. So it's more important to me that I be of service here than it is to kind of broadcast what I do and how I do it. And I have tons of ideas and I've prepped something, but if it doesn't resonate with you, I don't want to spend my time or waste your time. I would really like to be of service. We're kind of in this COVID, what are we, 3-4 weeks? I'm losing track of time a little bit. The full moon happened. I think it's lasting longer than some of us anticipated. The grief levels on a large scale are raising. There's a lot more loss. So if there's anybody who needs some support, we could work together in a group setting, or I can run you through an experiment. Does anybody feel compelled? Is there anybody in a lot of chronic pain? Okay, then here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run through the experiment that I kind of prepped for this evening. And it's interesting, the work that I do with clients, it unfolds organically. So I'm going to kind of have to create a little bit of this and ask you to roll with it and see what happens, okay? So let me get into this. So let's just kind of first, my view changed, so I can't see everybody. I'm going to click something. Hold on. There, I'm going to switch that. So let's first just kind of catch up to the moment. Okay, it's April 8th. I'm still stuck in February. It's April 8th at 8:28 p.m. Ooh, lots of eights. 8:28 p.m. on April 8th, Wednesday night. Okay? So if you could just be willing to allow everything that has transpired up until this point to just drop away, and everything that you're thinking that you have to do later on this evening or tomorrow, just allow it to drop away, and give yourself just a few brief moments right here. And in the right here, if you could just gently drop into your breath, just some awareness in this moment, in this breath, in this moment, in this breath, in this moment, and in this breath. And in this moment, just gently, gently increase your awareness in knowing that there are 7 of us on this call this evening. 7 of us have come together so that we are not alone in this moment. And when you're ready, kind of come back into the room. So it would be helpful to me by kind of showing your hand if anybody has experienced panic through this COVID development. Anybody gone through some moments of panic? Jendi, you and I are the only ones. So. But really regulating it well, so. Okay. So let's extend that to anxiety or depression. Yeah, something. So some uncomfortable. Okay, that's helpful to me because I want to use that language, okay? So in a few moments, I want to walk you through an experiment using kind of the body's wisdom, kind of see if we can settle in hopes of giving you a tool to navigate through these moments of either panic or anxiety or depression. But first, I want to give you a little bit of backstory as to how this experiment came into being and how it's been useful for me. Okay. As COVID started to develop, I initially decided that I need to figure out what it is so that I can feel safe and take care of my 2 boys, right? Like the initial response to COVID was, what do I need to gather? Where do I need to be? How does this need to be set up? And I took care of that. Then I was able to kind of drop into a little bit more ease and get a little bit rested and get a little bit more comfortable in this whole stay home change and what that was going to look like. But after my baseline of safety was taken care of and I became a little rested, I then became aware of these groups of people who are able to really acknowledge and see this COVID virus as part of a much bigger process than just what we're experiencing. That the earth globally, we're experiencing a major shift. And they were able to rise above the fear, the anxiety, the depression, or the panic, and come from a place of faith and calm and connection. And they even saw a possibility in a silver lining in the storm. And I'm going to reference how ironic it is that Jendi and Lori are on this call tonight, and the call started with a story where there was a gust of wind that created damage, which led to an expense, which Jendi could have fallen into panic. But as a result of Lori responding so favorably, there is this beginning of a friendship, a cultivation of something greater, a silver lining. Okay? So I began to desire to be a part of that group. Now, because I have a trauma background, right, a background filled with trauma, I have this natural trauma response to go into the emotion and get really hyper focused on what can I do right now. That's just my tendency, but I don't want to live there. Because when I live there, my shoulders round, my head comes forward, I get low back pain, I get neck pain, and I'm tense, and things don't work very well, and I'm emotional, and I can't think straight. So I wanted to open to this possibility of being in this process in a different way. And if you noticed, I sat back, and my shoulders opened, and I took a breath, and my voice lowered. So do that again. In this hyper focus where I'm really here, rigid, constricted, tight tension, to I wanted to open to something bigger than myself, where other people could see the silver lining in all of this change. Okay? So I began to work with this to try and figure out a posture, thought process, and a physical experience I could use to move me from panic, anxiety, depression into this place of being part of this group. And there was a picture that showed up on Instagram a few months back that I had been holding on to and resonating with, but I didn't know why. And Jendy's going to post that picture when she can. So here's this picture that I found on Instagram. And it's a group of women holding hands, all different shapes, colors, sizes, under this fabulous, fabulous planet with multiple moons and lots of color. And just notice how you respond to that picture. If there's anything in that that you really, really resonate with, and if you don't, it's okay. It's really okay. I'm going to try and construct this experiment so that it will still work for you. But there's something in this that brought calm. And I'm really touched because what I see there are women who have gone before me, who know how to stand together better than I do, and gather in strength and connection. And I know that there's been trauma and storms within that group, and yet they can stand and hold hands together. So, Jendy, if you don't mind taking that down. Thank you. I use this picture as a reference of this experience that I had, and I'm going to set up this experiment in hopes that you also have some sort of experience of your own that you can really anchor into your body. Okay, are there any questions so far? Okay.
I just want to point out that there are some comments in chat. I don't know if that's helpful to you about responses to the...
Love this. Thank you, Abby. I'm really drawn to the shadows in the sky. Thank you, Tasha. I'm glad you resonate with it because I do too. Thank you. Okay, so here's what was going on. And I'm just going to show you how I worked with it, and then I'll drop you in. We'll drop in and we'll do it for you. So on this left side of my body, I felt my panic. You name it, anxiety, depression, whatever you choose. On this side, I saw that circle of women. And I thought, I want to be here. I want to live here. I don't want to live here. Like, this is familiar, but I've done way too much work to be here. And this causes more suffering. This has silver linings, and I want to be there. But there was something, as you can see, I'm separate. I couldn't get to this place of believing this was my place too. So with the help of a friend, she said to me, "What happens when you start to go there?" And I went, "Oh, I get scared because I don't belong. I'm not really one of them." And then something dawned on me. What happens if they welcome me? What if they open their circle and widened their hands out and embraced me? And suddenly something really shifted inside, and I came to a place of knowing I belong. I am part of that. And I am part of my panic too. But I don't have to live here, and I don't have to live by myself in between panic and this beautiful circle. So now I use that picture to remind me when I get into a spiral of panic that I need to settle in for a minute and remember that felt experience in my body of what it was like for them to open their hands and reach out and welcome me into their group. And my body calms. I drop. And I'm not talking to a therapist. I'm just doing this on my own. And so I want to give that to you in hopes that you can also anchor it. So let's do this. Please know that if at any point in time the words that I'm sharing do not resonate with you, I want to encourage you to just sit in that and welcome it and be curious. And if there's resistance that comes up, make more space for it. Just be like, wow, I really see how this isn't resonating with you. And instead of pushing it away, just be curious. Maybe confusion, maybe overwhelm, whatever comes up for you is okay. And then you just sit and breathe and be with it while we finish this kind of experiment, okay? So if you're ready, we'll take the next few minutes here to kind of settle into a space that's comfortable so that you're able to kind of close your eyes and listen to me comfortably for a few minutes while I guide you through this, okay? And I'm going to do my very best to use panic, anxiety, depression, so I can personalize this somewhat, okay? So let's just begin to kind of close our eyes, come into our bodies to the very best of your ability. And it's easiest to begin with your breath. Just slowly inhaling and exhaling. And we're just noticing some settling in the body, if you will. Allowing these brief moments this evening to just be right here, right now. And just quickly let the jaw drop, the root of the tongue, the throat, the chest, the belly sitting in that pelvic bowl that's just holding it. And allowing your hips to really, really be held by whatever is underneath you. Now just gently for a few moments, just begin to remember the moment since COVID has begun when you felt some panic or depression or anxiety. And as you kind of remember this, just gently become aware of how your body shifts. Are there any areas of constriction or tension? Did your breath change? Are your thoughts confused? Or are you having difficulty letting go of your thoughts? We're just noticing, remembering that panic, that anxiety, or that depression. Now begin to remember a person or a group of people who bring you comfort during this time. But when you think about them or see them, you get an expression of, oh. And now begin to notice your body as you're thinking about this group of people or this person. What happens to your heart center? What happens to your forehead? What happens to your thoughts? Does your jaw release? Are your eyes curious? So in your mind's eye, as you have touched on the panic or the anxiety or the depression, and you have touched on this other group or this other person who brings you comfort, notice yourself in the middle of those two groups, those two polar opposite experiences. And give yourself permission to walk towards or move towards or expand your energy towards the group that brings you comfort or the person who brings you comfort. Is there an ease in this? Or is there a resistance? If there is an ease with this, and you can join that person or group of comfort, marinate in that. Marinate in those who bring you comfort. If there is a resistance, see if you can name it. What is that resistance about? Is it fear? Is it distrust? Is it not enoughness? And if you don't have a word, that's okay too. Just notice the sense in your body of the resistance. For those who have not been able to join that group or person of comfort, I'm now going to offer you another possibility. Imagine that person or that group turning to face you, reaching towards you with their arms and their energy and their hearts, welcoming you into their space. And notice what happens when I say, you belong to. So as we kind of come out of this experience, slowly, we bring our attention back to the breath. We touch on any area that has a vibration or an increased tension or heat or calming, and we just recognize it. And then when you're ready, you can come back into the room. So if you were a client in my office, I would be tracking your body posture as we talked about the anxiety, depression, panic, and your body posture as we talked about the group or person of comfort. And I'd be paying really close attention to how you are in that. Unfortunately, that was on you to pay attention. So if you can right now, before you leave this space, kind of feel into where was I, how was I when I was trying to focus on the anxiety, the depression, and the panic. My shoulders hunched, was my breath shallow, my jaw tight, was I really focusing? And just kind of anchor that. Be curious if there's any new information you can take. And then shift to being aware of where were you when you were thinking about that person of comfort or that group of comfort. Where were your shoulders? Where was your jaw? Where were your eyes? Where was your breath? How did you know they were people of comfort? That's the body's wisdom. So the beautiful tool here for you is, in those difficult moments, you can actually manipulate your body posture to help you feel and be with that person or those people of comfort without them actually being there. And it helps me to have like a visual, because I'm so visual, to have a picture of who that represents to kind of ignite that in my body. But I know that if I go into this posture, I'm more likely to reach calm than I am to reach panic or anger or depression. And I know that if I sit like this, I'm going to feel anger, depression, panic. Okay? So is there anybody who has questions or wants to share something they learned or a shift? Anything? Did I lull you all to sleep? Yeah. So
I am more than happy to share.
okay.
I have like all my tissues here with me. It was really, well, first of all, that picture really drew me in. I identified strongly with one of the images in there. And then in my mind, I started placing our Hakomi circle, all of the, especially the elders, you know, and I just started placing their energy kind of into this place. And in our Hakomi circle, I feel such a sense of belonging, such a sense of ease. And because the practice is so hands-on, you know, like physically being together, kind of like embraced as, you know, this picture is. I love the colors. It's so rich. And then when you led me into a kind of the drop-in, it was a really strong reaction of how much I miss my mom. And I just started crying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some grief there for sure. She's alive, you know, I just can't go see her. I can't go make wontons with her. So I'm missing my mom. And then that was getting too strong. So I shifted it so I didn't use up all my Kleenex on this particular moment. Isn't Zoom does such a nice job of like hiding my tears, apparently? Anyway, and then so when we dropped into the exercise, I was back with the Hakomi circle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hearing like Carol or one of our teachers, you know, reading the poems
Mm-hmm.
and feeling the nourishment of being a part of this group, being a part of the humans, but I could feel them touch me.
Oh, powerful.
Yes. So missed. You know,
Yeah.
I live with people. It's not like I'm super, you know, solo, but like it's the same people. Love them. Would love some different skin on my body. You know what I mean? I miss my great friends. I miss hugs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sad. It's
Yeah.
really sad. And the other piece was I was brought back into my peaceful place that I had when Brad was with us a couple of weeks ago, that peaceful place. And in that peaceful place, I was surrounded by elders, but I was an elder, which I don't have enough stripes yet for, but I was part of that sweetness and trusting that everything's going to be okay.
Thank you for being honest and vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sparked that longing for mom.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge that the body remembers. And in a time where we can't be with, we can still instigate, we can still like use our body to remember what is that so that it's nourishing. We don't have to go without if we use the body to access that experience. So you can remember mom. And there's grief in that. And my hunch is you could probably feel her touch or smell her being or sense her. And if you gave yourself the space, you could be comforted by that.
Yeah. Very palpable, very real for me. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Not easy to walk through when it's not organically happening for a client, but I tried to like, let's try this and let's try this. And yeah, so thank you for trying it, all of you. Yeah, I don't have anything else, Jendi.
Yeah.
And perfect timing, actually.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you, Kimberly. I love the somatic work so much because it just drops you in so quickly, or from my experience anyway, or that's the way I resonate with this type of work. So thank you so much for that. And I also really resonate with your voice. There's a lot of, I trust you. I trust where you're taking me. And I trust, I mean, anyone who chooses a picture like that, like, come on, that's just a gorgeous picture, especially the, you know, the night after a beautiful pink moon.
Full moon. We're wired for connection. And during this, people, you know, social distancing, physical distancing, whatever you want to call it, it is, you know, we use solitary confinement as a form of punishment. So this is really hard on us and our bodies. So we can access memory through body experience, which can tide us over for a little while.
Yeah.
And draw us into something else so we can find those silver linings in the storm. And maybe a new friend and maybe a new possibility. Okay, I'm done.
New friends, exactly. And I do like that reminder that this is a temporary thing. We don't know how temporary it is yet.
I know, but those elders know. They know. And I'm just comforted by that. And Abby said, thank you. You're welcome, Abby. And Lori, where was that? Thank you. You're welcome. And from Shannon, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And Tasha, thank you for coming all the way from Mexico. That's cool.
Kimberly and I, well, because we have so much fun together, we do an online group called Ease and Grace. We help. It's through a 6 or 8 week, I'm not sure we've decided yet, but it's an online program to help people find calm in anxious times. And this will be the second time that we run it. It's a hoot. And there's some sweet intimacy that happens in that group. So yeah, we have a lot of fun together and doing exercises that are all body-based. So yeah, that's coming up in May for us. Kimberly, thank you for gifting that to us so much.
You're welcome. And next week is Mark, right?
Yes. So we have another fabulous Hakomi therapist. His name is Mark Goodman. He was part of our Hakomi cohort back in 2013. He's phenomenal. So he is a therapist in Seattle. He's been doing this for 25 years. And he has his base in mindfulness, Hakomi therapy, and also nonviolent communication, which I would still love to learn tons about. But his whole thing is on compassion-centered psychotherapy, and he works with individuals and couples. And so I asked, what does he want to share with us? Every time Mark talks, I'm like, you either need to write a book or like make a calendar, because his words are so beautiful. So he wrote, "My sense is that I would like to talk about mindfulness and soulfulness, and how to bring compassion to our fear, and how to find a refuge within the being with the fear, and not getting lost in massive amounts of doing that is really running from fear."
He's amazing.
Yeah. And it kept going. So we will hear more about Mark next week. So that will be so much fun. And then after that, I don't have anyone else lined up. And I am curious, who or what are you seeking? What would feel really good for you? I'm like the collective you plural. Who do you want to have on here? Is it more body workers? Is it more acupuncturists? Is it more mindfulness stuff? Is it nothing? What?
Do you want an answer now?
Anytime.
I'm loving the being able to drop in this time for myself and like get into my world where, we're talking feelings and experiences and that language. I'm just loving it. It feeds me for the week. Like, oh, okay, right.
Totally. I hear that. I need this too. So it's so wonderful to have good people to do this with. Anyone else have anything that's bubbling up in terms of what you're seeking? If anything comes to mind, please do let me know. I'm all ears. Lori writes, awareness. Marcy writes, connecting with my wise self, so nourishing during this time. Okay. Beautiful. Great. So in close, I have a poem from Rumi. This silence, this moment, every moment, if it's genuinely inside you, brings what you need. There's nothing to believe. Only when I stopped believing in myself did I come into this beauty. Thank you, Kimberly, for bringing us to that silence, to that moment, and letting us know that we can access that at any point. And if we have troubles, we can always come back to the replays, which I'm finding very, very helpful in this time. So thank you everyone so much. We'll see you next week. Two thumbs, two Band-Aids. Man, symbolic in some way, I'm sure. I'm cutting my thumbs off. Good night, everyone. Thank you. Bye, Lori. It's so good to see you. I can't even believe it. Bye, Alexis. Bye, honey. Bye, Tasha.